refreshing to see if we are in on YouTube, because I don't trust YouTube as usual.
Yes.
There it is. We're in. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on the time you watch this, because I know they don't know you watch it live or in zombie mode. Zombie mode doesn't mean you're dead. Just means that you're not watching it live. And after that stupid joke, my public service announcement of the day. Say it in my usual polite and fine way. My camera is there? Yes. Wear your fucking mask. Let me repeat. Wear your fucking mask. Don't be an asshole. It's not about you. Let me explain. You wear the mask not to protect yourself. You wear the mask to protect others from you. So if you don't wear a mask, you're risking people's lives. Not even lives. Chronic illnesses, lung illnesses that are really, really awful. So don't be an idiot. And if you think that you're immortal, Superman, or just you simply don't care about anybody else's lives because you're special, then be special leaving this channel now, you asshole. I don't want potential murderers in my channel. So fuck you and off with it. Hello, after that way that
it's the most awesome public service announcement I think I've ever heard.
With just you know me, I say things in the most polite, and I have a way with words, especially the cursing words.
Yes.
How are you, my friend? How are you, Brian?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Yeah, absolutely healthy, which is sometimes difficult in this country, but doing well, doing really well.
Amazing. How's things in your neck of the woods? How's things in the Atlanta area? Getting better? Still crazy? You have a crazy governor still?
We still have a crazy governor. Things are definitely on the rise as far as craziness is concerned. But it looks like people are turning out to vote, and I think the voices are being heard. So I'm hoping for some sort of change to happen.
Let's sure hope so. And I mean everywhere in the world. We don't need more conspiracy theories and idiots. We just need science.
Oh yeah, please.
What is? Imagine I'm your doctor. My name is Victor Frankenstein. Nice to meet you, Mr. Stelfreeze. This is my syringe, which is a rotring marker. Just plop. And I tell you, pandemic is over, all the craziness is over. What's the first thing you could do that you've been missing since this started?
The first thing that I'm going to do is go out and start hugging people. Just go out, start shaking hands and hugging people, preferably at a comic book convention. that's the first thing that and in fact. With all of this happening, the thing that I'm looking forward to the most is the first comic book show that I do. Actually getting back in with people. One of the things that I think is so nice about comic book conventions is, to me, it's an extension of the comic book shop when I was a kid. Where everyone is a geek, everyone's a nerd, and we're all talking about superheroes. And those conversations at comic book shops tend to be hopeful. Mm-hmm. So I want to get back to that. I want to get back to that stuff.
Do you mean the conventions, or you as Howard told me, checking, who also a guy who has a way with words, as you know?
Yes.
as Howard told me, do we miss the conventions, or what we really miss is to get together for dinner and just talk about the whatever shit we can think of, or those serendipitous, encounters with the people you don't expect. You're having dinner with somebody you expect, and then somebody shows up. Somebody you haven't seen in years, and you just start talking like it was yesterday.
Oh, dude, all of it. I mean, the cool thing is it's different conversations. When you talk to the fans, you really get into the fantasy, into the enjoyment of it. But when you're talking to the pros, you get into the backstage, and that's like a ton of fun. So it's just like both sides are just really, I think profound. And we have this thing in comics where your fan can actually get to meet the people that create stuff. And I don't think the fans realize it a lot of times,
Mhm.
but those meetings change us. Those meetings change who we are, and we know who the people that we're cooking for.
Yeah.
We know what it is, and it really changes, especially for me. A lot of the international conventions that I do end up having a profound effect on the work that I do. So it's kind of cool to make that connection.
Yeah, it's a matter of one of the many special things that comics have that we'll get into later. And if you watch any of the shows, you'll see I'm crazy about the language and many other things. But one of the special things it has that I always think when you're in a book signing, there's like a wall. Even if it's not
Yeah.
physical, there's like a spiritual wall between the creator and the readers. Yes, I sign your book, there you go. Except for special people, I've seen Neil Gaiman signing, and he's very personable. Depends on the guy. But normally, there's always an agent or a publisher, trying to keep the distance. In comics, it's the opposite. In comics, we love to be close to the fans. We love to be close to them and to talk. And as you said, it changes you because interpretation is an amazing thing in comics. There's always going to be interpretation that you fucking never thought of.
Oh no, yeah, and the I think the coolest thing about it is all of and you say the fans versus the pros. What's really interesting is all the pros that I've met and hung out with, they're also fans. Yeah. They're fans that somehow managed to sneak into sort of sneak backstage and now they're performing. So it's really cool that when someone comes up to me and it doesn't matter if I'm working on like a Marvel book or a creator-owned book, someone will come up to me and go, "Okay, so Batman, right?" And then we just dig deep into that conversation because we're both fanboys in the comic book shop.
Yeah, but that's what it has. That many times, even with those fans. I know a lot of creators, and I'm pretty sure that's your case too, that you're going to go to a certain town where you do that con every year or every 2 years or something, and there's a certain fan that has become a friend in a way, that you're going to see it.
Yeah.
You're expecting to see that guy and have the conversation and ask him about his family or whatever he's doing, because you haven't seen the guy in a year.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that. That fan sort of friend line is blurred. It just becomes the same thing, which I think is I think that's really cool. As someone reading comics and getting into comics, I mean, meeting Walt Simonson was just mind-blowing. I mean, actually getting to just have quick little conversations with these guys as a fan, and then on the other side, talking to them as pros. Mm-hmm. I think the cool thing is this industry is small enough, and people's ego are checked just enough to maintain that kind of family feeling. And even with you, one of the things that I think is great is the way that you run your conventions that you end up doing. You've got your team, and that team feels like a family.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you've got like you're the big brother, and you've got your little sister, you've got your ornery little brother, you've got all these like different people that I've met from doing the shows with you, and it's just like that's such a cool thing, and I think that's the most devastating thing about this pandemic is taking what feels like family and those family get-togethers kind of away from us. And I think every convention to me, especially like you said, the ones that I do on a regular basis, like Charlotte and Baltimore, what's really awesome about those is those feel like a yearly family reunion.
Exactly.
And I'm just super into it, man.
Yeah, that's what you said. Thank you for saying it, because as I told you the first time I had you, and as I know how I told you too, that the thing that he loves the most is, aside of me being a foodie, because he always knows.
Yes.
It's the family thing. I always treat it like I want to have a group that gets together well. I don't care about superstar, not superstar. I just want people to be a family, to
Oh
be a
yeah,
group, and
yeah.
then end up the con just drinking and chatting about whatever. It doesn't matter. We're just friends together.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the coolest thing. It's funny because when I vacation somewhere, I always feel like an outsider. Like
Mhm.
if I take a vacation in Japan, or if I take a vacation somewhere in Europe, it's almost like, well, I'm the American sort of traveling through this country. But when I do a convention in another country, like when I went to Spain with you guys, I didn't really feel like a foreigner. It was just like this thing where you go into the convention and everyone's like, "Hey, Brian, good to see you." So it was like, it's so cool to have those ready-made friends and those ready-made family members right there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because
and that's
we are
something I miss.
we are a community, right? In many ways, and as I always say to you guys, to the fans, if you think you are going to do comics and become rich, that's not the point. You become a comic creator because you love comics, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
that's what makes you
You're here
stand
because
and
you
keep
want to be
working.
here.
Yeah, and that's what makes you stay and keep working on comics for so many years, right? Because you love them. If not, you probably could send it to hell.
Well, the problem is worse than that. It's like I wish sometimes that this was a choice. It's like this is something that I have to do. I can't think of anything that's more fun than this. I can't. There's nothing that I can get greater joy out of. If I'm making nothing doing
Mhm.
comics, I'm gonna do comics. If I'm making a lot of money doing comics, I'm going to do comics, and I'm going to do the same comics.
Mhm.
So it just really doesn't matter. And I think most of the people that are here for the love of the game, those are the people that do the best stuff.
Absolutely. That takes me to another question: is of all the possibilities you have, and you had a lot as an illustrator, maybe animation, maybe storyboarding in
Mhm.
movies. Why did you decided comics is my heart? This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Aside of the fact that you made, reading comics since you were a kid, I guess. What was it?
Um, I got to tell you, and I hate admitting this, but it's because I'm an arrogant son of a bitch.
Okay.
It's like when I did commercial illustrations, I was just doing work, and I almost had to disappear in the work.
Hmm.
The work was more about the product that I was trying to sell than it was about the artwork that I was trying to produce. So it was like my artwork was a conduit to get to Coca-Cola or some sort of company that sold whatever product. So the art wasn't important, the product was more important. And when I did animation, it was like, okay, you're one cog in this giant machine, and your contribution isn't personal.
Hmm.
Your contribution is just part of the whole. When you do comics, it's you and three other people, and that's it.
Yeah.
And not only that, but even when you're working for a big company like DC or Marvel, you're encouraged to put your spin on things, and I love that. I really love that what you're seeing is what I do. If I was drawing Mickey Mouse, I probably couldn't tell my Mickey Mouse apart from the other 100,000 Mickey Mouse drawings that it took to make this animation.
Hmm.
But when I'm doing comics, my name's right there. The choices that I decide are on the page, and I think as a creator, you can't beg for anything better than that.
And you also become, in animation or in others, you're a part of the bigger team, serving somebody else's vision. But when you
Yes.
do comics, is your vision, and you are the director, you are the DP, you are
Yeah.
in a way plot collaborator, even if you are not the writer, because as I always say, the good comics are when a writer and an artist have a big synergy, and that becomes a third
Yeah.
person.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is even when you're working for the big companies, like you said, you own well, not necessarily physically own, but you own a part of that. Everyone recognizes John Byrne's contribution to the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone recognizes Neil Adams' contribution to Batman. That stuff becomes canon for the character, and I think people will now, in perpetuity, recognize my contribution to Black Panther.
Absolutely.
And it's awesome to kind of go, I added to that. You know, there's a part of my indelible mark on that character, hopefully forever, just like Walt Simonson and Thor.
Yeah, that's what I call the evergreen. There's many times when I talk to creators who are, having a rough time, I always tell them that same phrase, like, remember that when they talk about said book, in your case, Black Panther, it's going to be one of the names that people is going to have in their conversation. What's your favorite version of?
Yes.
What's your favorite Thor? Simonson, Kirby, Romita Jr. In your case, it's Black Panther, it's Brian, it's Kirby, it's...
Yeah, exactly. And that is so cool that comics allows not only the creator, but the creator's name. Like there are going to be certain people that are like, oh, no, I'm a big fan of the Kirby Silver Surfer. But there will be other people that will go, no, Mobius really, and other people like, no, it's Bashima. So
I'm sorry, I'm a John Buscema guy in that
sense. I'm depending on what day it is. I'm a Kirby.
That's true. That's the same. It's the same to me. But
sometimes. Yeah, sometimes when I'm feeling artsy, I'll slip into being a Mobius fan of Silver Surfer. But it allows us to do that.
And another big amazing part of comics is that we can love all of them.
Yes, yeah.
Because of this, and especially you artists, because you can appreciate what each of them gives to the character. In Silver Surfer, we're going to talk about the strength, the power that Kirby had, but then the poetry that Buscema's issues had, and and the magic in a way that Mobius had in the way he showed things with that simplicity.
Yeah, exactly. And look at what you just did. You just named creators in their attachment to company-owned characters.
There you go.
Yeah. But if we try that exercise and say, well, who made that big contribution to Mickey Mouse? Silence. It's like it's a completely different thing, and it's a thing that comics did accidentally and organically, and now it's a feature of comics that has to be there, and I think that thing is what makes comics attractive to creators. I think it's a thing that makes comics attractive to fans.
Yeah,
because it's that little personal touch that that the creators are allowed to put on it.
And that's one of the things that people get a lot of credit to Stan Lee for many things, but this one they don't. And he was the guy who decided to credit the creators.
Exactly.
So we have to. It probably will happen later, blah blah blah. But the guy in the industry who decided to name the creators in any comic, that was Stan Lee, and that changed. Nobody knew who the fucking creators were in those comics before. Nobody.
Yeah. That's the coolest thing, and by doing that, that's the acorn that grew into an oak. That's that little thing that he did that didn't seem like a big deal at the moment, but it has grown into becoming, I think, one of the biggest features of the industry. And what's nice when I talk to creators, and they like I was talking to Cully Hamner not too long ago. And he said, dude, I figured out my Superman. It's like really, it's like now he's ready to do a Superman comic book because he's figured out what his personal spin is going to be on Superman. And that's what we all do, and that's what the writers are into. It's just like, well, what's going to be my take on the character? And if you do a good job, and good job is determined purely by the fans.
Yeah.
They allow you the prestigious appointment of being attached to that character.
Absolutely.
You know, that's almost like the fan giving you the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, but there's also the other side of what you just mentioned, which is you guys repeatedly telling me, I wish I could go back to said character, said book that I did when I was younger, because
Yes.
I wasn't ready. And now I'm ready. Now I get it. Now, as you just said with Cully, hello, Cully. That character I didn't get, or I didn't have my own take, and I didn't know it, so I just did it,
Yeah,
and now I know I could nail it. Is that what you mean too?
Oh, dude, that's a really big deal. In fact, I was actually lucky enough to have been an illustrator before I got into comics, and I had already had these thoughts of when I got assigned to do covers for Batman, which is my first major job in comics. It was kind of cool because I sat back and went, "Oh, I have to do Batman. What's gonna be my Batman?" I just sort of really like went over that decision and did a bunch of drawings and tried to figure out, because I can't come in there with a generic Batman. You know, I'm just going to get swept under the carpet of time. So I had to really make some decisions as to how do I see Batman. And once I figured that out, then it was just like, okay, I got it now. I got it now. You know, I know what my Batman is. And now let me introduce my Batman to the comic book industry. And the cool thing is people recognized it. And now even when you see a Batman, you can kind of go, oh, that's Brian's Batman. Or if someone else does a Batman, you can look at that and go, ah, he borrowed that from Brian's Batman. You know?
Yeah.
So it's really awesome.
When you're doing a page, when you get the script, you read the script, what's the first thing you go for? The structure, the formal side, or the emotion?
When I get a script, the first thing that I do is I read the script as a fan. I try not to imagine images or anything like that. I just read the script to just kind of get my unvarnished impressions of the script. And after I read it, I put it away and just walk away from it for a little while and just kind of like let it have a maturation on me. And then when I go back to the script, and this is gonna sound weird, but I go back to the script as a musician rather than an artist. So what I do, and this is something that I got from Jim Steranko, is I design the panels. Just how the panels are going to look, the shape of the panels, how the panels are going to change. And I'm thinking of rhythm. I'm thinking of like, oh, okay, well, this is a staccato rhythm. So I'm going to have 3 panels that'll look exactly the same. But then the beat changes here. So I'm going to do a different shape panel. And I go through the entire book just with panels. And then I go back to the beginning and go, all right, let me put some art. Sort of in these panels. You know? Do
you think that comics are, and I do think that most of the time, comic storytelling is a symphony?
Oh yeah.
You go low, you go high, you give the punch. You know, like.
Oh man, you just nailed it. You just absolutely nailed it. And I think the most important thing about what you just said there is the dividing line between comics and illustration.
Absolutely.
You know, with illustration, I've got 1, if I'm good, 2, if I'm really killing it, 3 beats that I can do in an illustration. You know, you first see the illustration, you see this, and then you see that, and then you see this. So there's only 1 little quick movement that I can pull off in an illustration. But in a comics, like I think of it like an illustration is like a lick on a guitar, you know, but a comic book is a symphony. You know, you have time to just like pile those things up and just really sort of suggest something here and repeat it here and then really drop the beat here. There's just all sorts of cool stuff that I think and someone asked a question about getting into comics. That to me is the most important thing, is to really understand the difference between drawing pictures and being a comic book artist.
Yeah.
Because being a comic book artist is I think drawing really good pictures is like the 10th most important thing. You know, there's all this other stuff that you really have to consider before you even think about drawing the picture. And I think your average reader, they're not looking for good drawings. They're looking for storytelling. They're looking to be moved. They're looking to feel the emotions of what's going on. And it just so happens to me that I see that most of what I consider the great comic book artists don't draw things perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they draw things a little bit stylized, and that stylization makes the storytelling faster and more impactful. So as an artist, if you're working just on drawing pictures, I always say to young artists coming in, you should do 10 times more layouts than you do art.
Yeah.
Because comics is much more about doing layouts and doing thumbnails than it is about drawing really awesome pictures of like sexy women.
Yeah, and also there's a part that many artists don't seem to grasp or don't want to grasp, especially younger guys. That I keep repeating this is, I always go back to the caves, you know, to the prehistoric.
Yeah.
Time.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
I repeated, comics are based on human nature, and that's when they ask me, "What do you mean?" Like, we are built to recognize, to have pattern recognition.
Oh, dude.
We still see a bush moving, and we hear probably a tiger that's going to kill us, so we run away. And that came from all the time when we were, you know, Neanderthals or whatever, Cro-Magnon, in the prehistoric times. And comics is the same for me. I always say you don't have to complete. You have to let the brain of the reader to complete the image. That's what makes it comics. The stylization is to get the reader to complete and be a part of the storytelling. If you don't let them be a part of the storytelling, the readers get bored.
Oh yeah, you actually push them out of the image if you give them too much. And I think it's cool that last little bit that you leave for the reader makes them customize it for themselves. You know, they customize the experience just for themselves, and that to me is the greatest collaboration. You know, the collaboration that people always talk about is, oh, writer artists, you know, artist colorists, you know, those are the great collaborations that we always talk about. But honestly, in comics, the greatest collaboration is that thing that happens between the creators and the readers.
Yeah.
Because you don't complete the story, you just catalyze the story. You just give the story enough energy to move forward, and it's up to the reader to take it the rest of the way.
Yeah, the part that I love the most about this is, for me, comics are, I always talk about arts and sciences because that's what they were called in the day, and there's a reason for that. And I always say comics is a symphony, but it's also math.
Yes,
and also, guys, I'm sorry, I know you hate me because I always repeat this, but I always say that comics is the only art form that can defy Einstein's theory of relativity. Because comics control time and space at every single moment. When other arts can, you're watching a movie, the movie's gonna move, whatever you do. A novel, you gotta keep breathing. In a comic, you can just be 22 fucking pages on the same second, or jump back and forth, or control the shape of the panels, as you just said, to create the symphony of time. You create that math when it goes slower, boom, fast.
Yes. And that's the fun. That's as a comic book artist, I think, and probably a lot of your younger artists are dealing with this. But all of us as artists, we like feel bad about the art that we do. We kind of go, oh man, I'm not good enough. I'm looking at this artist and looking at that artist, and they're so much better than I am. And you feel this like fraud complex or this shame about your own work. And I think what generates that is the fact that the art is it. There's nothing more than the art. But the thing that gets me excited is not just looking at my art as art, but looking at my art as sort of a fragment, sort of a plank time of storytelling.
Absolutely.
And what's really cool about that is now, like, I think art schools teach you primarily how to deal with space.
Yes.
How to manipulate space. Comics, you have to use that manipulation of space to create the feeling of time.
Absolutely.
And what's really cool is the joy of creating time, creating the feeling of time, takes my attention away from my ugly artwork. and like, really, now my artwork isn't the end all be all, but my artwork ends up becoming a set of tools.
Yes.
A set of tools that I can use. So I think the thing to make the consideration of is, if you're sitting there presenting your tools, then nobody cares. But if you take these tools and you build a house, or if you take these tools and you build a computer, then wow, that's a big deal. So it's not necessarily the polishing and the refining of the tools. It's get tools that are good enough to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then take those tools and try to achieve something with it. And an architect or a carpenter is going to require different tools than a plumber, who's going to require different tools than an engineer. So and I think everyone that's interested in drawing comics, if you seriously look within rather than looking out, what you'll find is, I'm interested in action, or I'm interested in romance, or I'm interested in whatever, depending on your upbringing, depending on who you are, even whether you're a woman or a man, you're going to have different reasons why you want to do comics. So I think as an artist, you have to get to the point where you figure out how, and then stop asking the question how and start asking the question why.
Yeah, that's in many cases, that's also the real question is, how do we do this? I answered back saying, no, why do we do it? It's not about the how, it's about the why. There's got to be a reason for comics storytelling. I go back to, I had John Romita Jr. a couple times because he wanted to come back a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about storytelling, and he literally said, look, the reason I do the art the way I do is very simple. I realized very fast that I was never going to be as good as my father. So I said, what I can become really good at? Storytelling. So there's other things I know I'm not that good at, with my art, but I don't care. What I care is why I keep wondering how to tell the story the best possible way.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is awesome is style is the answer to the question of why.
Exactly.
When you look at someone like John Romita Sr., his stuff is powerful. His stuff is just like magnetic. But when you look at John Romita Jr., his stuff is a little bit more lighthearted. His stuff is like, and it's just like, every artist that you look at is capable of doing, like Mike Mignola cannot do action very well, but Mike Mignola's style isn't about action. Mike Mignola's style is about that eerie sense of foreboding. Whereas Jim Lee's style is pure action. So if you want to do a romance comic, don't call Jim Lee. It's like probably not the guy. So, and I think once an artist sort of looks inside and starts figuring out what they want to do, that the set of tools that they have to create to achieve that will then naturally create their style.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about it is, and I've said this at shows before, even getting jobs in the industry is not based on the speed or the quality of your drawing. It's based on the consistency of the emotion that you're capable of creating.
Yes.
Yeah. So an artist or an editor they don't even realize that they don't care about art. What they do is they have this job, which is a Nightwing comic book, and they've got to go, who would be good for this Nightwing comic book? Who would be the best artist that has this kind of feeling to their work? And they're not looking at the quality of how good this person can draw or how fast this person can draw. What they want is, well, Nightwing is kind of light and funny, not as heavy as Batman, but a little bit of action. And if your art has that in it, you get the job.
Absolutely. Have you? Let me throw you a curveball. Have you ever considered thought about colors as sounds?
Oh yeah. In fact, it's kind of funny because the colorists that I'm working with now, what we always talk about is the colors are the soundtrack to the book. And it's this whole thing of like, and she'll come in and she'll kind of go, okay, I want this to be like really soft and symphonic, but then I want it to ease into almost a little bit of German techno, but then I want to just drop the beat like it's house style and then go into the action. And this is like, oh, yeah. So it really, thinking in those terms completely changes things. And we almost never talk about color when we're talking about coloring. Yep. It's just like we don't ever bring up the name of a color or chroma, sort of the Munsell color coding or anything like that. The only thing we talk about is how it should sound, how this should create that sort of certain mood. And then she goes off and she comes back with it. And of course, she's chosen to do this with green, but she could have probably chosen to do it with red, or she could have probably chosen to do it with yellow. The actual color doesn't matter. What matters is, like you said, the pattern. What pattern did you lay down from panel to panel to panel to panel? And once we've laid down that pattern takes control of you.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, you're on it 100%, man.
And then
the colors are the soundtrack.
and that pattern you created leads the reader to ask why.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And I think the cool thing about it is not only does the reader ask why, but if you're consistent with that pattern, then the reader anticipates. And if you've got the reader anticipating, then the reader can't tell the difference between reality and the story you're telling them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that, oh man, that's what I love.
That's the moment when the page turn becomes the reader absolutely embedded and not knowing what to expect, but anticipating subconsciously. They're anticipating what's going to happen. And that's therefore involved, which is the part that I love more about comics. I was saying before, yes, you are controllers, dictators, puppeteers, whatever, of time and space.
Yes.
But if the reader doesn't get into it, doesn't participate, doesn't ask why, or whatever we want to call it, subconsciously doesn't, this get into the story, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we do as creators.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that is in every scene, hopefully the writer has set the reader up for a fall. And now, as the artist, what I want to do is I want to set the reader up for that fall.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do a panel that the reader can read and feel good about. And then the next panel gives them exactly what they're expecting. And then the next panel gives them exactly what they're expecting. But then the next panel, boom! It's like I've like turned the tables on you. So you really have the reader, depending on the scene, the reader feels like they're walking a minefield where they just can't necessarily trust you.
Yeah.
So it's just like that's fun, and that is the purpose of my art. Not doing a picture that makes people go, "Ooh, that's a really awesome drawing of the Black Panther."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in a way, even if they know they know they cannot trust you. Like, no, I don't trust this guy anymore. But at the same time, say as I said, they are so hypnotized
Yes.
that they can let go. It's like, should
Yeah.
I hate him or her because of But like, but I love it.
Yeah. And here's something that I think, when I made this realization, it was like the world shifting under my feet, which is sometimes storytelling requires you to do a bad drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're all about doing perfect, anatomically correct drawings all the time, then you're running afoul of storytelling. And there are times when me as a fanboy, when someone has written, like when Ta-Nehisi writes Black Panther comes through the door, I'm like, whoa. As a fanboy, I want to draw the hell out of Black Panther. But if this is a quiet moment, then I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't draw the Black Panther that I want to draw. What I have to do is I have to do maybe him in silhouette, or maybe him with figures in front of him, or something to minimize the impact of the character because the scene is quiet. So I'm purposely doing a crappy drawing of Black Panther in order to give the reader the feel that the reader needs. And that's really kind of a shocking thing. But when you get to the point where you know when and where to do it, you really are on top of things, and it feels awesome.
Yeah, and it's also, as you said before, is you want to give the reader the right emotional vibe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you finish it too much, you're giving him the wrong emotion. You want to give him something else. So if you're guiding him, you cannot betray him. You can trick him.
Yes.
But never betray the reader. Because the moment you betray them, they know, and they leave the book forever.
Yeah, and oftentimes when I'm going through the script for like maybe the third or fourth time, there are times where I'll have a scene, start, and I'll read the scene, and after I've read the scene, I'll go, this scene is a 4 for intensity, and then I'll flip again to the next scene and go, okay, maybe this scene's a 5. And I'll look for those patterns, and I'll realize, oh, the writer is building towards something, scene by scene. But I can only know that if I know the intensity levels of each scene.
Yeah.
I think as an artist, what ends up happening is you want to basically go panel 1, 10. Do the hell out of some art on panel 1, panel 2, 10. And I think what happens when you do that is it's too intense, it's too much. So what happens is the reader slips out of sort of a temporal experience, and they slip into a gallery experience. So now they're looking at pictures that are unrelated to each other, as if they're walking through a gallery. And that has no narrative to it. You're not gaining strength as you pile these things together. You're just like, oh, wow, that's a nice panel. Next panel. Ooh, that's a nice panel. Next panel. Ooh, that one's nice. And that's not comics. That's not comics at all.
No, because if you crank it to the 11th every time, first, it hires the reader's eyes, and second, you just kill the possible emotions he can get. Because if you're always here, the moment when you want him to really feel the emotion, sorry, that's a wall. Because
you're already there.
You have to slow down. And then, as we said, the symphony, you go down, take the violin, the piano bit by bit, and then we go back, the drums, the horns, bum, bum,
Oh
bum.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
yeah.
get the reader, and he's like, holy shit. Because
Mhm.
that's what Frank Miller has always been a master of. It's
Oh,
like,
dude, that was what I was just gonna bring up. When you like, I'm a big fan of those big splash pages in The Dark Knight Returns, but in between all those big splash pages are just like these little tiny, like 1-inch panels. So by the time you get to those splash pages, he has set you up. He has pushed you into a tunnel, and then you come out of that tunnel, and it's just like, whoa. And I think a lot of artists in the 90s were blown away by those splash pages. So they decided to do comics that were all splash pages.
yes,
It's just like, and no one remembers any of those comics anymore. Those comics. I mean, Frank Miller's Dark Knight will always be remembered because it was a symphony.
yeah,
But the artists that were inspired by the Dark Knight and did all these splash panel comics, they're not remembered because they're all these like weird trash metal
yeah,
music.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
and that's the whole thing, is the difference between music and noise is one is organized, the other is not.
Yeah, and I always remind people that they always remember, that splash with Batman jumping, seen from below, and I always tell them, look at the page before that. It's 9
Yes,
panels of people talking on a TV screen.
yes, yes,
So
yeah,
it takes you
yeah,
from, that's what Frank did incredibly well. It's like boom.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if I think the cool thing is if you do it right and you set it up so that 3 or 4 pages are spectacular, and the rest of the pages are just setups for those 3 or 4 pages, that's a great book. But if every page is amazing, that book is forgotten. It's
Yeah,
it's forgotten.
I always repeat this question because I think the 90s almost killed it. But for you, how important is silence as a storytelling tool in comics?
Oh, it's massively important. Um, Silence, when done right, is the ultimate trust that you've done your job and the reader's going to do their job. That to me is like it's a perfect harmony. When you've set everything up to where you go, I'm just gonna let this go. Like to me, one of the greatest cinematic examples is The Usual Suspects.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the end of The Usual Suspects and you watch Verbal Kent and you watch his transformation. At no point someone looks at the screen and goes, Verbal Kent is Kaiser Sose. It's like they just allow it. They trust that you've seen everything, and let us remind you of what you've seen, and just watch this scene. And you're allowed to, in your own time, make the realization of what you're experiencing. And I think when writers have enough trust in themselves, and the artists have enough trust in themselves to set up those scenes where we just kind of go, let it go, let it go. Those, when writers give me that, I am like, oh man, you're really going to ask me to work now. This is, I'm really going to have to bring this one in for a landing.
Yeah, and it also is, in my opinion, sometimes writers forget they need to give breathers to the readers, the time to breathe, the time to absorb. And then you get to a scene which is silence, and you're actually telling the reader, breathe, absorb. We are giving you that moment to take it on.
Yeah.
And if done right, as you just said, that moment of silence is going to tell you everything you need to know. What we said before is going to tell you the why.
Yes, 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 and that's one thing that I absolutely love Ta-Nehisi about, is he would, even in the script, he would set things up, and it would just be like this poetic buildup, and then he would actually write in the script, okay, Brian, I'm going to let you have this ending moment. you do your thing. You know, it's like, all right, you know, all right, totally cool. You know, and there are other times when his bit of poetry that he's going to lay down on this image is going to make that image.
Mm-hmm.
But he's relatively terse with his dialogue building up to it. So now it's my job to basically come in and go, ooh, let me set my boy up. LeBron is moving towards the basket. Let me throw him an alley-oop. You know? It's like those are the best moments, and I think those are the best moments of reader experience,
Mm-hmm.
because the reader's doing the work. You know, the reader is the fourth person in the room.
Mm-hmm. Let me talk about our superpower as readers, and I want to know if you agree. Comics are based, as you know, on not showing, but what happens between the panels. That's the most important,
Yes.
you know. And that makes us as readers. I always thought that comics should be taught to kids all over the world for one important reasons. It teaches us when we go and watch TV or read a newspaper or read the news or read a novel, whatever, we always, capital letters, always read between the lines.
Yes.
Automatically, even if we don't want to. We are so taught, as I always say, Superman opens and the next thing is flying. We don't need to cover all the moments. We just jump from one to the other. That when we read something else, we never think the first impression is the real one. We always think what's behind it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, totally agree with that. And that's my game. You know, my game is, and this might be getting too deep into the weeds here, but what I try to do is I try to hang out in that space between the parietal and the cortex.
Yeah.
Where the parietal recognizes the images and the cortex makes sense of those images.
Absolutely.
You know, my job is to hang out in that space right there and go, well, I'm just going to feed you certain images that'll make you draw certain conclusions. You know, and that's what storytelling is kind of going, okay, I know if I say 1, 2, you're automatically going to think 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's storytelling. That's what I want to do. And the camera angle that I choose for a scene, or even the colors or the amount of black composition, all of that are things that I'm taking advantage of, like you said, these ancient embedded patterns that every human being has. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to lean on you finishing. I'm going to lean on you saying 3. And that's one of the things that I think is really cool is comics. Comics is the Esperanto. I mean, I love the fact that I read Appleseed in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak Japanese, and I definitely don't sort of read Japanese, but I was able to pick up volumes of Shiro's Appleseed and read them even backwards, you know, and I got the story. And it wasn't until like 4 or 5 years later that I actually got the translation and read it translated, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. You know, so it's cool that it's such a universal language, and it's a universal language because it doesn't play with the cerebral cortex. It plays with that space in between, and I think that is much more profound.
Absolutely, and we've been having that since the caves, as I keep repeating. When you saw that sequential storytelling, I mean, you had the guy shooting a spear, and you had 4 spears, you know, on the painting in Lascaux, or the guy had 4 legs, you know.
Yes,
they were telling a story. They were telling a story in those walls, and we got from there to comics, which uses the same tools. It's like we use what we don't show you to tell you the story so you complete it, because your brain, as you said, there's different parts of the cortex are going by instinct by the
Yes.
restart parts of the brain, whatever you want to call the old parts of your brain, they're going to complete what we give you.
Yeah, and that's the most fun thing, in my opinion, about comic book storytelling. It's cool to have people in other countries read comics that I've done without actually reading the words. They can still flip through it, and if I'm doing a good job, they can kind of figure out basically what happened here. That to me is there's nothing cooler than that right there.
Yeah.
That's the superpower of comic book making, and that's the superpower of comic book reading.
Yeah, there's a part where I tell young artists when they ask me for scripts. I need a script to do samples, and nope, there's no script. What? There's no script. I need 2-3 pages where I can just understand everything from beginning to end without a script.
Yeah,
if you're able to do that, we're fine because you're a storyteller. And second clue, everything that is on your brain that is not on the page doesn't work because I need to be able to see it on the page.
Exactly.
No, and that's what I'm going to show to an editor, and he's going to ask me, "Where's the script?" And it's like, "There's no script. This is just storytelling."
Yeah. The first pages that I showed to an editor to get my first job had no script. It was just like a little scene, and the cool thing about it is if you do your job right, the editor won't even ask for a script. It shouldn't require word balloons. Like editors, and this is something for young comic book artists to make the realization of, is editors don't know what good artwork is, but they know what good storytelling is. They think good storytelling is good art, but it's actually a completely separate thing. So if you do like a 4-page sequence or a 3-page sequence that has a beginning, middle, and end, it has setup, conflict, resolution, and the editor experiences that emotion, you've got the job.
Absolutely.
But if you show an editor a 3-page sequence with some really awesome drawings, you're probably not going to get the job.
Yeah, and if it's 3 pages, they fight, and no, they fight. Like, no, where's the arc on those pages? Oh, yeah. I just wanted to show a fight scene. No, that's wrong. You have to tell me how it starts, what the conflict, and how it ends. Even if it's not a complete story, I need to have an arc. The editor is going in 2 pages. Even if they check your 15-page portfolio, you gotta know. And many artists don't get it. And in the second page, they already know if they're going to hire you or not.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing is by the time they get to that second, maybe third page, if they haven't experienced an emotion, if they haven't experienced a sense of a narrative, you're done.
Yeah.
You're trying to get an English major to approve of your art. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And something that you mentioned earlier, which I think it's an exercise that I try to tell young artists coming up, is you want to do layouts that you throw in the trash. That you just lay out a scene with thumbnails or with a full layout, and after you finish, ball it up, throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
And if you can't think of ideas, an easy thing to do is to kind of sit back and say, well, what's your favorite movie? And don't watch that movie, but kind of go, I'm going to do this scene from that movie.
Remember.
And the way that you do the scene, you can't remember the exact camera angle that was in the movie. You know the events that happen. And since you know the events that happen, try to tell that story.
Yeah.
And if you can tell that story and then show that to someone and they can see what happened, you're good. You know, like to me, the most fun thing is my girlfriend, who's not super deep into comics, which is great. what I do with her is I'll lay out a book and then I'll give the layouts to her. And if she has a question about anything, I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and just that exercise of layouts apart from art, I think is a great exercise. And and also to add to that, someone asked what my favorite movie was. Gattaca, because that's the best movie ever made.
Okay. We'll get to the questions in a minute, but I was going to say, yes, that's the other part. What I tell artists is, imagine I'm your editor or your potential editor. If I have questions, if I ever have to ask what's going on in these pages, you're fucked.
Dead. Yeah, you're
never.
dead.
It's gonna go from beginning to end, no questions, and then asking you about what you like to do. If they start asking what you like to do, what you like to draw, you're in a good position. If they gotta ask about what's going on in a certain panel, out. And the second thing, never justify yourself in front of an editor. Never try to, I was late, I was trying to, the worst thing is,
if there's a question, you are wrong.
Yeah.
And something else that I think is really important, especially for the young guys and girls coming into the industry, is understand that as a comic book fan, you have a lot of linguistic garbage in your head. And what I mean by that is there are certain things that are just pop art. Mm-hmm. It's actually not storytelling. It's just pop art. And like even when I was in Valencia, someone brought me their pages, and every other panel, they had broken the panel border. And I was just like, okay, you've got people coming over like every panel, and clearly what it is they'd seen that in comics. Therefore, I'm going to do it in my comic, and it's really linguistic garbage. It's I saw this, so I'm going to do this. I don't understand why I'm doing it. I'm just doing it.
But sorry to interrupt. There's a worse part of it. In many cases, and you know this as well as I do, it's because they don't do the layouts. They take 5 minutes to the layouts, and then they go to the pencils. It's like no. Everything needs to fit.
Yes.
That's composition. Yes. That's the layouts. If it doesn't work on the layouts, it doesn't fit. Everything is not in place. And then you go to, and you're going to make it wrong. It's going to be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And even little things, like if you desperately need to do that, do it on the last panel. It's like don't like try to do this high wire stuff on every panel. Like what I think it's important to do is simple meat and potatoes storytelling. To show the editor that you can do it.
Yeah.
All of the cool should happen in the panel, not I'm going to make my artwork sexier by breaking all the panel borders and doing diagonal panels and all this crazy stuff. It's just like, no, that doesn't make it any better. That actually potentially makes it more confusing.
Exactly. And you can also, use the bleed to your advantage. You don't have to break the panel borders. Use the full size of the page. If you want to show the editor, you can go out of the panel. Okay, just go bleed. Use it. Don't break the panel borders just because. And if you break panel borders, it's the same phrase I always use. And you too, like learn how to walk before you try to run. To break panel borders, there's a purpose. There's a reason for that. If you break them, it's gotta be clear and obvious that you're using it for a reason. Because if not, it just looks to an editor and a reader. Because the readers know much more than we do. Always. You couldn't fit it. It looks like you did your work wrong. You didn't do your work correctly.
Yeah. And a lot of times, which I pointed out to the guy who brought it by, that the problem is you're thinking that the panel where you broke the panel border exists as a piece of art on its own. But now when I go to panel 3, Captain America has a high heel shoe on top of his head. And it's like, okay, I understand that high heel shoe is from the panel above it, but it's a high heel shoe on top of Captain America's head. What's up with this?
And where is my eye? And where also, even worse, where is my eye going? Because my eye is supposed to be in that direction, and since there's a high heel in his head, we go back to the third panel.
Exactly.
The diagonal should be from here to here, but then instead of starting here and going to get here, we go blah blah blah, and boom, and then we have to go boom.
So, and what it is it's as if you're going to take your driver's license and you decide to bring a helicopter and fly that. It's like, well, maybe later you can get into flying helicopters, but right now you're trying to get a job driving a car.
Exactly.
So just do that right now, and later we'll get into all the other cool high wire stuff that you can do. But
exactly,
right now,
you will get the craft. You will get the craft. You will get good enough to try to do these things. But first, learn how to walk. And it's also, if you lose the editor, you're going to lose the reader. As I said, if you go this direction and then you go here and then you go here, not in purpose, because of the high heel in Captain America's head, you lost the reader, and he's not coming back. People don't realize the moment you lose the reader in one page, doesn't matter if he reads the rest of the book, he's out.
Yeah. Now the only time that I disagree with that is if you can ship a little version of yourself with every book you do, so when the reader does get lost, that little version of you can say, "Oh, no, what actually happened here is this." So unless you can ship
the mini Deadpool,
that can explain. Like my attitude is always, if the reader gets lost, I'm wrong.
Yes.
At all times, my work should be clear enough for the reader to follow panel to panel to panel what's going on. If it's not there, I apologize. I screwed that up. And I know a lot of times people go, "You're just not used to reading comics." And I'm like, no. In fact, I try to take this to a level of, I oftentimes get in arguments with editors because I say, don't put these giant sound effects on the work that I do. I don't want big lettering, when something blows up. Hopefully I will draw a cool enough explosion to where the reader will put the sound in there. Anytime I see that in comics, I think someone coming out of comics reading this might think, "Oh, I guess there's a Hollywood sign that says BRIAN in the background." So I don't want that on my art. I avoid doing speed lines and all of these like little iconography things that comic book artists and comic book readers agree that this means that. I don't want to do that in my art, because and this was a big deal, especially for something like Black Panther, because of Ta-Nehisi Coates. I knew that this would be some people's first comic book they ever read.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if it's their first comic book they ever read, they're not going to understand all these little colloquial comic book linguistics. So I was just like, let me get rid of as much of that as possible. Let me just take that stuff away and just do meat and potatoes storytelling.
Yeah, I agree with you, except when it's shaking.
Yes.
I fucking forgot the name of the letter. I'm sorry, Howard, don't kill me. The kiss, and of course Walter with John Workman. He does.
Yes.
So those guys are integral. I think they're integral to the storytelling. Both of them.
Yeah, and in those cases, the fact that it's comics is part of the storytelling, which I think is just takes it to a completely like the stuff that Chaykin did in American Flag. It's just like, oh, the lettering is actually part of the experience.
Yeah.
And the only time that is discordant is in the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the end of the first issue, you've integrated that into the experience.
Yeah.
And then it becomes something that he later uses as storytelling, which is just awesome.
In the shadow, the lettering is all part of the storytelling. In the
Yes.
shadow miniseries. So yeah, I have a page here, but I'm not going to show it. But in that page, everything is part of the storytelling. But anyway,
and that is flying a helicopter.
yeah, exactly. When you get to that point, it's fine. But they couldn't try at the beginning. They learn to run before they learn to walk before they try to run. Anyway,
Exactly.
let's go with questions, right? Because I don't want people to think we're ignoring them. Hello. Okay, so Victor Herrera Q from YouTube. Hi, Mr. Stillfreeze, big fan from Colombia. Hello, Victor.
Whoa, Colombia, represent.
Pedro de Mercader also from YouTube. Hello, everyone. Congratulations and thank you for your work in Black Panther. Now, how it was to collaborate with the great Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh,
I always think I pronounce his name wrong. So sorry, Ta-Nehisi. I'm sorry. Don't kill me.
You're close enough. What's really amazing is that was because he's like a big deal. He's an awesome author, just award-winning, New York Times bestseller, all that stuff. I kind of thought, okay, well, I'm going to be the second banana on this. But he came in so open to collaboration. And the awesome thing about it is that combination of him listening and changing his writing, and me kind of going, oh, I see what you're doing. I'm going to change my art. It was just a really true collaborative process. And I think we met in the middle, and that's where the best creative energy was. So yeah, he was awesome to work with, and I'm going to be working with him again as he gets to the end of his Black Panther run.
Yeah, I know because he's working with Acuna, with Daniel Acuna.
Yeah.
Danny tells me the same thing, and I see it. The collaboration is really 50%. It's not Ta-Nehisi trying to impose his will. And I was told you were going to come back for the end of the run, which is incredible. It's a cap in the run, so it's a great idea.
It's gonna be so much fun to get back in those shoes.
Yeah. Oscar Silence Death from YouTube. Silence Death. I don't know if I want to answer you. Now, glad to see you're doing good. What's your favorite Batman cover that you've made? Woo. And which one that isn't yours is your favorite? Do you know how many he did?
Yeah. That's kind of one of those weird Sophie's Choice. It's like which one of your children do you want to keep? The rest we're going to murder. It's like that's. But for me, it's the ones that are less about the spectacular Batman and more about the story that's being told. I think with Batman, there are other artists that do spectacular Batman way better than I will ever do. So I can't compete on that playground. But on the occasion where I got to do like kind of emotional stuff, like one of my favorites is there's a story called I think it was Mr. Nobody, and the cover is actually Bruce Wayne holding this homeless guy. So it's like non-Batman whatsoever. But I thought it was just a really telling image because it's not the spectacular image of heroism, but it's the silent sort of image of a hero. And I thought, okay, that's my little spot. I was just like, okay, Simon Bisley, you move that way. Neil Adams, you move that way. I'll get this little mat right here, sort of to live on. So I felt good about that.
And your favorite Batman cover is not by you? Your favorite Batman cover artist?
My favorite Batman cover artist. Again, impossible to choose. There's so many different people for so many different reasons, for so many different emotions. So that's an impossible choice. And I'm definitely not in the running.
Okay. Blake Rival, also from YouTube. Just so you know, guys, on Periscope and on Facebook and on whatever Twitch, whatever platform, you can send questions, and here on Restream we can see them. So don't hesitate sending questions. Okay. Blake Rival from YouTube asks, "What was your favorite part about working with Walt Simonson?"
Oh, my favorite part about working with Walt is that I got the job. And after I got the job, and it was Mark Chiarello kind of said, "Hey, this is the job. Do you want to do it?" And I was just like, "I'd be an idiot to turn this down." Hung up the phone with Mark, and then I got a call from Walt, and Walt was just like, "So, full script or classic Marvel style?" And I was just like, "Dude, And he was just like, "I got it," and hung up the phone. And it was like, I didn't even have to say to him, it was classic Marvel style. And man, Walt, like, this was a weird job because it would only be experienced a page at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And Walt was brilliant enough to have a setup conflict resolution on every page. So you got a story every week. That was just so cool to work with that guy. And I would die to work with him again. I mean, he was just on something a little bit bigger. But man, he's like I think that's why they call him the father of comics. Because he's our guy.
Absolutely. Luis Pevidios, hello, says hello. Kyle Rayner review. Brian was in Argentina last year. I had the pleasure to meet him, and he was kind enough to sign me one of my Shadow of the Bat comics.
Oh man, Argentina was awesome. Dude, I really, really loved Argentina. It was a great country. Just absolutely fantastic. I was there like right before like the giant sort of soccer thing. It was just really, really spooky in sort of a way, but it was just really phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Mankind Nawalpan, greetings, Brian. Just stopping by to thank you for giving me the best portfolio review some years ago. That definitely changed my way of making comics and improving my work. Saludos, David. Well, and you're now killing it, and right now you're killing it on DC. So I see your portfolio helps, right?
Nice. Well, the cool thing about it is everything that we've been talking about here. If you listen to my portfolio reviews, I talk very little about art.
Mm-hmm.
Because I oftentimes think that that's the least, when someone has enough art to come by and get a review, they're close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And generally it's not the art that's stopping them from getting in. It's the lack of themselves that's in the work.
Yeah.
And anytime I can help someone kind of bridge that gap, that's where the awesome happens.
Yeah. That's also my answer to most artists is find your voice, find yourself in those pages, because you look like 80% of the people who's going to show a portfolio. You can't. You gotta show yourself. You gotta show to the editor that you are different, that when he gets your samples, automatically he's gonna know who you are. Not even needing to remember the name, just the style, just the artist gonna tell him, oh, I'm looking at samples from that guy that I like last year. Oh, he's much better now. Now I can hire him.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, the biggest lie that art school tells you is to basically do your work to where you can get hired for any job. That's like the worst advice I can think of. It's just like, you don't want artwork to be so good that you can be put on any book. What you want is your artwork to tell a certain story, a certain type of story, a certain emotion, a certain genre, that when an editor looks at it, they can instantaneously imagine you on one book.
Absolutely.
and you'll get that job.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if an editor looks at your work and goes, "Wow, this girl, she's really good. I could put her on anything." They'll put your portfolio down,
Yeah.
and never call you.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if they look at your work and go, "Whoa, she would be awesome on a Domino miniseries," you're going to get that job.
Yeah, yeah, because the other one, I call them the undefines. The
Yes.
undefined, the undefined go to the stack because
Yep.
there's no certain for the editor or another director. And Chirello, you know as well as I do that Chirello would agree with us. Is if it's I don't know where I could put him. He's good enough, but I don't know where. You have a problem because it's in the stack. But the
Yeah,
moment
you're
he
somewhere
knows
in that stack.
he could be amazing or he could be amazing for this, he's going to go back to DC. Well, he was going to go back to DC, and I've seen him do that and go straight to the editor, or even being at DC with Mark, showing him a portfolio. He just literally told me, "Come with me, get up, go to
Yes. Yeah.
the editor's office and say, this guy could be amazing for this book."
Yeah,
The
exactly.
moment they have that in their head and they know where to put you because your style tells them something, you're in.
Yeah,
Very
yeah, yeah.
tough.
It's and it ends up being a big deal to understand that that no job is handed out based on the quality of your work. You know, the jobs are going to be handed out based on the consistency of your story rather
Yeah,
than the quality of your artwork.
absolutely. Blake Roybala from Facebook, from YouTube again asks, "What's your process of literally adding colors to your books?"
My process to adding colors to my books, generally, the way that works is if I'm doing a short story, then I handle the colors. If my process for doing colors for miniseries and long form stuff is finding a colorist that I think is awesome and saying, "Go to town." You know? But when I'm doing covers and things like that, I mean, technically, I use mostly Clip Paint Studio, doing things digitally, unless I'm painting it, and then I just use traditional materials.
Mhm. Have you guys ever thought about having a Steam coloring your book, coloring your work, or that's
She's actually done
ever good?
she's done a few small things before, you know, but, and usually that's when I have a gun to her head going, "I need this job," you know? But I wouldn't want to put her through that, you know.
Yeah,
That's like her kind of going, "Yeah, I need you to do drawings of animals." This is like, no.
yeah. That's what I was asking.
We generally tend to stay, you know, sort of in our
I was asking because
respective.
I can just imagine her face. Could you do that?
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Like, okay, honey, thank you.
Exactly.
Okay, Kyle Rayner Reviews asks, how did you manage that situation where us comic fans see you guys as idols? Is that something that you are aware of as an artist?
Hmm. Um, with me, it's like I try to get rid of that as quickly as possible. And I think being a fan helps you from falling into the idea of being an idol.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. When people come up to me and they start saying all this cool stuff that they think I am, I'm like, no, 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 no. Let's stop with that right away. I am a fanboy that happened to sneak into the industry, you know, and that's kind of what I get into. If you like the stuff, awesome. If you want to hang out, awesome. You know, I'm just really I don't give into that whole idol thing whatsoever. Hopefully, I can inspire, but I'm definitely not an idol.
Yeah. Victor Q, Mr. Steel Freeze, have any advice for artists trying to break in the industry? How to overcome insecurities about art? And also, which artists influenced you?
I was influenced by all of the artists, and I think getting into it, that's going to be the deal. You're going to be influenced by other artists, But I think the thing that gets you in and the thing that keeps you in is your ability to stop looking outside and start looking inside. I think your heroes can serve as inspiration, and your heroes then can serve as maintenance. But you shouldn't keep them in front of you the entire journey. You have to at some point put them to the side or put them behind you and figure out what you want to say. Like I said, even things like making a decision of what genre you like. You know, do you like action? Do you like romance? Do you like horror? Do you like situational? What sort of stories you're interested in? And once you start doing that, what that does is that changes your art. That makes you, rather than trying to think of a number from 1 to 1,000,000, and draw that art, you're actually assigning yourself a target and then moving towards that target. And I think that gives your artwork specificity. And another thing that I think young comic book artists definitely need to do is understand that there's a difference between how you feel about your art and production. Those are two separate things, and don't let those streams cross like Ghostbusters because they will blow you up. The awesome thing about it is if you feel terrible about the art that you're doing, if you feel that you're not doing good stuff, you want to really examine that feeling and understand that that's going to be there for the rest of your life. Just get comfortable with that, sort of, and hate yourself and just enjoy hating yourself. That's just going to be. But what you need to do is sit down and do the work. And don't even plan on feeling good about it. Just do the work. And what's going to happen, if you're doing the work constantly, you're going to get better and better and better. And what's awesome about that is your hatred of the work that you're doing is going to get better and better and better. So even though you're doing awesome stuff, you're still going to hate it. So I think the thing that you want to get comfortable with, especially if you want a job in this industry, is to just draw. No matter how bad you feel, no matter what's going on, if you just got in a car accident, you want to kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to draw some pages. If your like family member dies, okay, that's sad, but I'm going to go and draw some pages. And I find that for me, oftentimes emotion is something that happens away from the desk. Production is what happens when I'm on the desk. And the analogy that I use a lot of times, it's like giving a cat a bath. It's like when you're holding it over the water, it's just like, no. But once it gets in the water, it's just like, okay. And I think that's how I am a lot of times when I'm emotionally not feeling like I'm producing, or emotionally not feeling like I should work, because I feel bad about what I'm doing. But if I can make it to the desk and I start drawing, all of that goes away. So you got to discipline yourself in knowing that you're always going to feel bad about your stuff. And that feeling bad about your stuff is the drive that makes you better.
Yes, absolutely.
So accept that. If one day you actually woke up and went, oh, I'm awesome. My artwork is fantastic. I'm awesome. What's going to happen is an inspector is going to come and put an expiration date on you. And your stuff will not get better from that point on.
Absolutely. I remember, Bill Sienkiewicz, he got a question about how does he feel and how he deals with imposter syndrome. And he just said, I keep working.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
you do. You just keep working until it disappears. You're gonna hate what you do. You just keep working. That's the only way. So
oh yeah.
that's the advice I could give you too, Victor. Is work, work, work. Keep working. That's the only way.
And that's the thing is nothing's going to solve the problem of you feeling good about your stuff, but you will constantly get better if you keep working, no matter how you feel about the stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Carlos Ramos from YouTube asks, "Love your work. I wanted to ask, what is your inspiration for your Black Panther work?"
The inspiration for my Black Panther work is actually sculpture. One of the things that once I read what Ta-Nehisi was doing, I realized that Black Panther, in the perception of the readers, was perfect. He was just this absolute flawless being, but in him being busy being flawless, everything around him is corroding. Everything around him is just falling apart. And he, because he's concentrating on the perfect world, he's not seeing the things that are happening right at his feet. So my inspiration for drawing Black Panther was I wanted to draw him to where he looked like a perfect Greek sculpture all the time. But like the people around him were organic. The people around him, I used like a lot more organic line work with them, so that Black Panther always looked a little bit alien compared to everyone else. Everything was like all these like chiseled, sort of perfect marks on him. And to kind of achieve that, it was really looking at a bunch of sculpture. And kind of going, what's that thing that ties? And again, I'm going to get back to it. What's the pattern here?
Yes.
And then from there, it was just looking at African culture. What I wanted Wakanda to be is a representation of all of Africa. So I'm taking influences from Egyptian culture. I'm taking influences from Maasai culture. I'm taking influences from all of these different cultures and kind of mixing them together in the fashion of Wakanda.
How much of you is there in the movie, you think?
The funny thing about it is I was doing a show in Toronto, and this girl came up, and she was part of the production of Black Panther, and she said that Coogler brought a bunch of the graphic novel and handed it out to everyone on the production and said, "This is what we're doing." So it was really cool to actually hear about that. And I got to tell you, the most awesome thing in the world is when we went to see the premiere, Ta-Nehisi was sitting there. So he's there with his wife. I'm there with Steen, and we're watching this premiere. And every few minutes, I would lean forward and say, "Hey man, that's you." And then he would like lean forward and go, "Dude, that's you." So that was really, and again, we're just fanboys, watching the movie.
I kind of guess you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah. Understatement of the year.
Yeah. Henry Barajas from Facebook asks, "Who's your favorite Batman artist?"
Oh, my favorite Batman artist. Ooh. The tough thing about it is I can break that into a couple of different columns. I'm gonna say Frank Miller. Because Frank Miller brings an emotional thing, but I don't necessarily like the way Frank Miller draws Batman. I like the way he does Batman, but not necessarily how he draws Batman. But I'm gonna say maybe someone like John Paul Leon, because the way that John Paul Leon does Batman, it just looks like a dude in a suit. It looks like a guy in a tracksuit. So and I love that. I love the kind of pedestrian quality about that, and I think Somni's got like a nice touch with it too. I love how Somni just captures that, just a dude in a suit, quality.
Guys, if you haven't read Batman Creature of the Night by John Paul Leon, you're taking too long already. It's a fucking amazing. You gotta read it.
It does not get much better than that right there.
Absolutely. Miguel Angel Montes de Oca from YouTube, I think. It says Matador 1, issue 1 has an amazing cover. How was that? And that takes me to ask you, how was that project? How did you and Devin decided to do that?
Oh, dude, that's it's kind of cool, because what ended up happening was, and these things happen on a regular basis, where I'll have an idea, and maybe it's because of like my lack of arrogance as a writer. I'll have an idea and I'll go, I'm not good enough to write this. So let me get someone who is, and I reached out to Devin, who I just absolutely am in love with, and she like kind of took this story that was just like a skeleton and just added like meat, sort of, and vascularity to it, and turned it into this completely other thing. And it's exactly what I wanted from the project. So it was like really, and again, true collaboration, where the ghost that I put into the machine is equally distributed among both of us, So it's like, it's so fun to work on something so different. And I'm a huge film noir fan, and I wasn't getting that out of comics. So it was like really nice to do this like detective film noir story with in comics, and it was just such a blast.
Yeah. Let me just ask for you guys. Devin is, aside of being one of the best people ever in the world, she's such an undervalued writer. She's so good.
Oh yeah.
She deserves a lot more credit that she gets.
Yeah. Just brilliant. Actually, what's really cool with her is right around the time that I was getting into the Bat Office, she was getting into the Bat Office. So we kind of almost considered ourselves like, there was Danny O'Neill, who was the old man, sort of, he was the dad, and then you had the other like sort of writers and editors that worked with him. And Devin and I felt like the kids. We were like the grandkids, just kind of running around, kind of, and every once in a while we'd go, "Hey, Granddad, can we do this?" And Denny's just like, "Okay, yeah, go off, do that." So it was just a lot of,
your scoundrels, do your thing.
yeah. But it's kind of cool, because Denny, in my opinion, his editing was about storytelling. He understood this mysterious thing called storytelling. So, and he imparted that on to Devin and I. So it was kind of cool for us to benefit under that tutelage.
Yes.
And then go our separate ways, and then reconnect again at Matador. So it was cool, because we spoke a similar language by the time we got back to Matador, and it was kind of fun, because that was an exploration. All my projects tend to be an exploration of storytelling, but that to me was just so much fun and so raw.
Okay. Ramsey Hassan from YouTube. Brian, you have such a fascinating take on comic storytelling and anecdotes about your time in the biz. Would you consider writing a book that mashes up your Tao of comics and your journey in the biz?
Oh man, no.
I knew that. Not a chance.
Absolutely. Well, the thing about it is I've thought about it in terms of kind of how-to books and stuff like that, and there's a couple of buddies of mine that are trying to convince me to do like a Kickstarter project with something like that. But I think I think I can get into that. But as far as like my time in the business and everything like that, it's no, I'm not a biographical guy because I think the way that I got into this industry is so backwards and lucky and a brilliant exercise of stupidity that if anyone attempted to draw any inspiration from this stuff, it would just be like detrimental to their health.
Guys, just read, and I think you're gonna agree. Read Hey Kids comics from Howard Chaykin by Howard Chaykin. You want
Oh, yeah.
you want
Yeah,
that?
Howard has done a much better job than I think any of us can.
Okay. Ezekiel Shapira from YouTube. I met you a few years ago in Argentina. I'll always be grateful for your feedback and advice. They made me the artist I am today.
See, sweet.
Not a bad one.
And I gotta tell you, the coolest thing is when I was hanging out in Argentina, and we did the same thing when I was in Valencia.
Mm-hmm.
What was cool was after the show, after all of that stuff happened, went to dinner with like just a small group of artists and just talked shop.
Yeah.
It was just like so much fun. It's so much fun to just kind of get in there and talk about comic book storytelling. All these guys were just absolutely brilliant, and it was cool to kind of like dive into that. It was just really cool to get into that, and you know, it's nice because just about everywhere I go, I see like awesome portfolios, and just about every portfolio has this spark, has this ember, and I feel that my job is to just kind of get in there and kind of fan that sort of a little bit. And a lot of times the people who bring me portfolios, they're looking away from the spark, you know, and I like kind of going, no, over here. See this thing right here? That's you. That's you. Let's try to get some flames going on that thing. So that's fun.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Many times, as we said before, they try to meld. They try to be like the others. And
Yes.
Most of the times you just have to, you know, first you push and then you take the elbow and say, stop. You know, it's like,
yeah, get out of here.
focus on that corner. Stop trying to be like everybody else. You just
Yeah. And I think Zeke is an example of that. You know, actually kind of finding themselves in their work and then starting to move towards that.
Absolutely. Blake Royval, Brian, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, dude, hands down, Gattaca. Gattaca because, and this is not an opinion, this is a fact.
Okay.
Gattaca is the best movie ever made.
Okay.
I mean, some people will say, you know, things like The Godfather and all that stuff, Citizen Kane. Those people are wrong. It is Gattaca.
I am wrong then because I don't agree with you, but I'm wrong. I accept being wrong in front of you, my master.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's a fact of life that I'm wrong about everything, so I don't care. I'm wrong. But I don't agree with you. And Carolina Messer, hola, is an amazing Spanish illustrator. El Fauki from Facebook. Brian, your color palette is wonderful, sometimes unreal. How do you use color theory?
The way that I use color theory is very simple, and hopefully I can explain it without getting too deep into the woods. But the thing that helped me to understand color theory, and again, it's not the math of color theory, but it's the why of color theory, and I think the foundation of my idea behind color theory comes from a conversation that I had with my optometrist. And he explained that there are two cells in your eyes that perceive light. You know, one is called the rods, the other one is called the cones. And the rods are capable of seeing value, and the cones are able to see color and detail.
Yes.
And then he went on to say 95% of the eyes is rods. 5% is cones. So what that means is 5% of what you're looking at is color and detail. 90% of what you're looking at is just going to be value.
Yes.
And whatever you're actually looking at, that is going to be a rich color. Everything else is going to be slightly neutralized. So when I use color, I'm using color the way that you perceive color. So even though it looks like I'm using a bunch of bright colors, I'm neutralizing all the colors except for the color that I want you to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else is really using color more for value than actual color. So I think my colors appear brighter because you can actually see more of them. And that's really the foundation of everything that I do. In fact, even when I'm painting, if you catch me painting at a convention, I'm oftentimes painting with the dirtiest, muddiest water. And I want that. I want that because I want all my colors to have a little bit of this garbage water in it, and for the colors to neutralize down just a little bit. And then what I do is right when I get to the subject, to the thing that I want you to look at, I'll get my assistant to run off and get me some new water, and then I paint the subject with that new water. But that's the foundation of my color theory.
I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always thought that with your color, gradation is the most important thing. Gradation as modulating the values of the same color, so people actually perceives it at the same color, but it's always playing with the variations, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is I'm not using colors just flat. I'm using colors not for the color they are, but for the value that they are. And that kind of helps you to, and this is, I think, the thing that we were talking about earlier. It triggers recognition.
Yes.
And that's what you want. You want to trigger recognition. You don't want to trigger appreciation, but recognition is the first thing. So I generally tend to color in value, and oftentimes even little things like choosing a color of the light and choosing a color of the shadow. Like oftentimes I might say, oh, the light is yellow, but the shadow is purple. So that means I'm going to put a little tiny bit of purple in all my shadows, and I'm going to put a little tiny bit of yellow in all my light. And what that's going to do is make the piece seem as one.
Let me see. Oh, look.
These are some awesome questions, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf of them. They are amazing questions. JG Jones from Facebook. Oh, that's JG Jones.
Hey!
JG Jones.
Sweet. Sweet.
Always a treat.
Heavy is in the house.
Yeah. Always a treat listening to Professor Stelfreeze lay it all out, he said.
Oh man. Well, the cool thing about it is and I've had some just really cool conversations with JG. Dude, there are way too many times that I think I would rule this industry if I could draw like JG. That guy kicks my butt. He is so good, man.
Well, he keeps mostly everybody's ass. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's just that's just how it rolls.
And he also is one of the most humble and kindest guy in the fucking universe.
Yeah. Like the cool thing about it is in one of my favorite novels, which is Snow Crash. The hero makes this realization after coming in contact with the villain. And the hero basically says, okay, everybody harbors this dream of becoming the world's most baddest badass. And he said, that dream for me is done because I've seen Raven and I know that job is taken. And I think that's the cool thing with JG, where you kind of go, okay, the comics baddest badass, that job is taken.
Okay.
Let me apply for a lesser position.
Yes. Lisa Hawkins. Hey, Lisa.
Whoa! Lisa.
Love hearing you speak, Brian. Big hugs.
Clearly one of the best editors ever. And it's weird because we talk about like writers and artists not being recognized. I think a lot of times editors don't get recognized for just the quality of the work that they do. The coolest thing about working with Lisa when I did the Domino miniseries, Lisa was the editor that got that going, and the coolest thing is she got what we were doing, and even before we did the Domino miniseries, Lisa gave me an opportunity to. In fact, it was my first opportunity to write in comics, and that was a story in Marvel. I think it was X-Men Unlimited, and it was like hindsight with doing a Cyclops story. The cool story behind that is Lisa said, "Okay, I want you to do a story in Marvel Comics Presents. You can do any character you want, any X-Men character, Wolverine, whatever you want." And I was just like, "How about Cyclops?" And she was just like, "What, Cyclops?" and I told her, I said, "I will never be able to do the best Wolverine story, but I can probably do the best Cyclops story." So let me just aim for smaller game. And like I love working with her, and we're definitely going to get together again on some stuff. She's my favorite. She's awesome.
Yes, he is, and love you, Lisa. So
yes.
you know we love you. So let me repeat again: we love you, Lisa.
Yes.
Peter Raku, thank you so much for the advice, Brian and David. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, that's what we do.
Ezekiel says we have a really cool pic with you and Joe Quiñones, and never had the opportunity to send it to you. Okay,
Quiñones, man.
Social networks, man. Social networks, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
Angel Perez, sorry for missing the live chat. I'll watch it in zombie mode as soon as I can. Thank you for another masterclass of art. Thank you to him.
Thank you. Thank you for hanging out, man.
Oh, okay. From Facebook, Tony Harris.
Whoa! Oh man, this is like
Sub B fruit serum. Give them something wet.
Man.
Hello, fucking Tony Harris. How are you?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, with the team, man, there's so many like a lot of what I am, a lot of what I talk about stems from the good old days of Gaijin Studios. Tony was a profound inspiration on the stuff that I do. The crazy thing about it is I feel that I was probably like a more lighthearted person about the art that I was doing, a little bit more, just kind of standard comics. But like meeting and hanging out with Tony, and Tony was a guy that I instantaneously recognized had a genre locked up. He was doing something that just had that eerie kind of horror feel to it. And I was just like, you look at that and you look at the proficiency that he was able to hit that genre, it really kind of made me go, well, I can't do bubblegum with this guy over here, like sort of doing what he's doing. So I think Tony's inspiration really made me a little bit more serious about what I had to say. And I think, everyone at Gaijin was my brother, my father, sort of my inspiration, sort of jailer, sort of, and master. And it was just really, cool to sit in that and be influenced by that. And I think the awesome thing is Tony's the guy that came to me and said, "Oh, dude, you paint. Teach me how to do this stuff." So it was like this really cool kind of boat of misfits, but all of us having a different skill set.
Mhm.
And all of us bringing, either inspiration or direct tutelage to each other. And I got to tell you, man, there were way too many super late nights of Tony and I just sitting in the studio, just talking about the good stuff, man. Just getting deep into the weeds on stuff.
Mhm. Carolina Benze tells you, some days ago I read that the best way to get a rich palette is to choose a single main color and then mix all the rest with that one, instead of working with lots of them. I think that's a cool advice.
That is absolutely fantastic advice. And in fact, one of the things that I always say to people, particularly when you're doing covers, is it's a good idea to, and I refer to it as the ish rule. Like what is this cover? Is it going to be blue-ish? Is it going to be green-ish? Or is it going to be red-ish? You're going to mostly dominate that cover with a single color. And the reason why that is because you're giving the brain less information to process. And if you give the brain less information to process, that information moves into experience faster. And not only does it move into experience faster, you're able to recall it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do a cover and that cover has all the colors on it, then someone says, "Oh yeah, that cover," and you go, "Which one?" Well, the one that it's hard for us to bring up that information. But if you say, the bluish one, the entire image comes back because you're not having to. When you JPEG that information in your brain, you threw out most of the information, and it makes it easier to unpack it. So that technique of using a single color and mixing that color with every other color, that technique is often referred to as harmonizing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're having a little bit of that color in every other color, and that just harmonizes the piece, makes it seem of a piece rather than separate little elements that have to be processed individually.
See, the symphony.
Yeah, exactly.
Symphony. That color gradation is also a symphony.
Oh yeah. And even things like flesh tone, I really more consider flesh tone a value than I do a color. Because there are times when I'm going to do flesh tone and it's going to be blue. It's going to be green. It's going to, sometimes when I'm doing like a guy's face, I'll just put blue, sort of in his 5 o'clock shadow. And it makes sense because it's the right value and not necessarily the right color.
Absolutely. Angel Perez, Brian, how is the process for you to design a cover? You have complete freedom. You talk with the rest of the creators, I guess the writer and the editor, or get direct instructions from the editors.
Oh, dude,
it depends, right?
It's all over the place. And the thing that I want more than anything else is if it's a collaboration, let's get everyone out of the kitchen except for sort of the chef and the sous chef, and that's it. Like anytime there's a collaboration and there's too many people involved, you don't get good covers. What you get is you get a cover that everyone can agree on. So usually when I figure out that, hey, there's a lot of people involved in this, I instantaneously quit. It's just like, I'm out. But for me, the best situations that I get into, and again, let's go back to Lisa on this. Lisa, oftentimes when she's talking about a cover assignment, she would describe the emotion that she wants. She would describe the energy that she wants. Like she would say, "Ooh, on this one, do something sexy, kind of a romance thing." I'm good. I'm off, and I'm going to come back and give you a really cool cover. Sometimes an editor will just send me the script and or send me a synopsis of the story. And when I get a script or synopsis, then that means I have to do what Lisa does. It's like I have to figure out what the mood of this cover is. I never try to sit down and start designing something. You know, what I try to do is I try to establish the intent, or I try to establish the genre, or I try to establish the emotion of the cover. And once I do that, you know, if I'm going to sit down to do a Batman cover, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, ooh, Batman, noir. That's what I'm going for. I'm going for a noir cover and maybe something dangerous. Those are my instructions. Now I'm shooting at that target. You know, I never sit back and go, well, let me just do a couple of drawings of Batman and see if something works out. It's like that's guaranteed failure every time. So my thing is to try to make it about storytelling. Try to figure out the story that I'm trying to tell. And I now, once I've established that, I can tell that story in just the set of the figure, or maybe the colors, or maybe the composition. So I give myself an assignment and I go for that assignment. And what I'm hoping for is that's the first thing you feel when you see that cover. You know, that impact, that emotion, that intent.
Joe Prado says hello. Hello, Joe Prado from Facebook too.
Hey.
Angel Perez, what series of characters would you like to draw or make one of your covers? I guess that he asked, what characters would you like to do covers with?
Oh, dude, I've been incredibly lucky in that, you know, as a fanboy, I've got like, oh, these are the ones that I love. These are the characters that I am absolutely in love with. So those are the ones that, if an editor calls up and says, hey, Spider-Man, I'm like, oh, I'm on that. so it's kind of it's kind of cool that I've been doing this long enough to where I've gotten, like, you know, sort of most of the people in my top 10 list. But I tell you, man, Iron Fist, Iron Fist is some unfinished business. You know, it's like I gotta get on to, like, you know, an Iron Fist cover or something like that. So there's a couple of things that are in there, and I think there's a few of the editors at Marvel. They know, you know, they know that, okay, if we want Brian to do a cover of this character, we know he likes that character. So.
Okay, so just so you know, we've been talking for 2 hours, and probably you need to go for lunch.
We can hang out, you know, sort of, you know, your call.
Let me ask you one last question. Tell me, is there anything that's been nagging you for years that you keep saying, I am not going to retire or die, because I don't think you're ever going to retire without doing this project, but always been there, and for whatever reason you haven't been able to do it?
Yeah, there's a handful of projects that are like that, and it's projects that I have fragments of ideas on. I think probably the biggest thing is there's also like a couple of paintings that like, when I thought of, ooh, I'd like to do this, and this is how I'd like to do it. When I initially thought of it, I also made the realization that you're not good enough to do that right now. So you need to back off, you talentless hack. so it's like, because once I do it, it's off the table. You know, yes. I can't do that again. And you know, it's there's like a Joan of Arc piece that I'd love, and I've got it. I know exactly what I want to do, but I want to do a little bit more work with oils before I take it on. And there's a handful of projects like that. Honestly, Catwoman is a character that I am absolutely in love with, and I'm like, I wouldn't feel good unless I got like a good Catwoman miniseries under my belt. But like, I'm just hungry. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I would like to do, and and it's awesome that I'm kind of moving into a position where I can get to some of that stuff. And one of the things that I'm excited about right now is the things that the comic book industry doesn't satisfy. The industry has moved in a way that we can do different things. We can do, like I just did the book Thomas River.
Yeah.
That's a book that I don't think would fare well in the comics industry because it's not comics genre. But, you know, we ended up doing it on Kickstarter, and I'm going to continue doing that on Kickstarter. So I think it's really awesome to kind of get into an industry that I'm in love with. But then as I grew, the industry grew and changed to more fit the sort of scatterbrain mentality that I have. It's like I'm a storyteller, and I love to tell stories. So
and the industry is growing,
to do it.
And the industry has grown in a way that allows you to tell different stories depending on the mood and what you want to tell right now, right? It was much more limited a few years ago, but right now you say Thomas River, but tomorrow you can say, I want to tell a horror story or science fiction or whatever I want, because now there's a space for that.
Yeah. Like right now, I was just talking with a female creator who's going to write one of my next projects, and it's too early to start like seriously talking about it. But this is something so weird and so different. And what's nice is being in that position where we don't have to go, oh my God, will Marvel publish this? Would DC publish this? Would Dark Horse publish this? We don't even have to think about that. We could just do it and create the thing that we want to create. And then at that point, figure out what we want to do with it. Exactly. Figure out if we want to do it on our own, or if we want to do it as something specifically for one of the other. Or even now, the interesting thing is there's all these book publishers that are jumping into doing comics. So it's really an awesome time to be a creator right now. Is like the sky's the limit right now. You can literally do whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. And also, in a way, that takes us to the point of saying what we were saying. And I want to ask you as the last thing. Oh, before that, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez just entered the chat.
Whoa!
Wait. We are not worthy. Just
okay. Now there's like there are creators in comics that I refer to as prime numbers.
Yes.
they are prime numbers because they can't be divided by anything else. They are the and Steranko is one of those prime numbers, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is just a giant influence in a sort of on me. In fact, the thing that's cool about Jose is he is such a huge influence on me getting into comics as a kid, just as a fan, and then a giant influence on me just becoming an artist. And then on top of that, a huge magnetic influence that I have, because like there are times when I think if I don't draw it like Jose, I'm doing it wrong. So you have to then it's like trying to avoid the gravitational pull of Jupiter.
Yeah.
But it's and just not only inspirational as an artist, but inspirational as a person. You know, it's so cool to see him at conventions, just being a fan. You know, I gotta tell you, if I had like the first convention that I met Jose at, you know, I met him and I was just like, oh, I'm a big fan of your work, and he's just like, oh, and I introduced myself to him, and he's like, oh. he actually recognized my work. And my thought for the rest of the day was, if I got hit by a car right now and died, that'd be a pretty good life. That'd be pretty good. So I've done it. So yeah, and it's amazing. Again, if I could go back and talk to 13-year-old me and say, the guy that's drawing that book that you're reading, you're going to meet him, you're going to hang out with him, you're going to have dinner with him. It would just blow my mind. Just absolutely.
So yeah. To make it even better, his comment is, great chat, very instructive. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, David.
Oh my God. Yes. That guy is still hungry. He is still hungry. It's just like that's the inspiration I'm taking from him now.
And that's the inspiration you all watching this should take from Brian and from Jose Luis, which is keep working, keep getting better, stay hungry, but stay humble.
Yes, always. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
That's the way. That's the way. The moment you don't stay humble or hungry, you are not in this industry anymore.
Oh yeah. I absolutely enjoy my ignorance. It's like I love bringing my ignorance to other artists and just kind of going, what are you doing? What's going on there? Why are you making these choices? It's like that.
See, we started asking why, and we're gonna finish asking why.
Yes.
Why are we making these choices? Why do we do what we do? It's, again, guys, we said it, we repeat it. It's not about how, it's about why. Always find the reason behind
it. And the cool thing is how is the follow-up question to why. Once you know the answer to the question why, the question of how gets a lot easier to answer. And I always say this, even in terms of, it doesn't matter what you learn. You can't learn anything unless you know why.
Yes.
Because if someone says, well, you have to learn anatomy, and you've got to learn anatomy, you got to name all the muscles, you got to name all the bones, anatomy, and unless you know anatomy, you can't get into the comic book industry. Well, there's a guy named Bill Waterston that does Calvin and Hobbes, and his anatomy is terrible. But the why answers that question. The types of stories that he is telling doesn't require high fidelity anatomy.
Exactly.
So that you might be filling your toolbox with a tool that you will never use if you don't ask yourself the question of why. And if you ask the question why, then you know exactly what tools you need, you know exactly what you need to learn, you know exactly what you need to practice.
Yeah, why are you going to try to use that tool that you will never use? Because you don't need it. That's not your forte. Maybe that's not the road you should be trying to pave. You should be trying to find another road. And if you ask how and not why, you maybe are not going to get the answer.
Oh, yeah. And you know what kills me? What kills me is somehow Mike Mignola, that bastard, figured out a why that doesn't require him to use perspective. I mean, whoa! That is just like this giant tool that takes like a lifetime to master, and Mike is like, I don't need it.
Yeah, out the window. Jermaine McLaughlin, hello, Jermaine has to true, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez says, I'll steal that. I love my ignorance.
Yes. Awesome.
And Daniel Gomez says, as always, a really incredible chat. Thank you for those moments to both of you. Thank you for watching them.
Man, always good hanging out, man. Always, I will talk shop until you
realize what I have here during our whole chat. Remember this?
Oh yeah. That's the piece that I did on stage.
Yeah. So I had it here at all time while we were talking.
Nice.
Okay, so it's 2 hours and a half already. You gotta go eat. I gotta go back to my family because it's seven
Steve,
twenty.
Steve just brought me some lunch.
Okay, so
So
you gotta eat now. It's 7:20 p.m. here. Carlina Bensler tells you because I don't think she tells me, and if she tells me, that's a mistake. This chat has been an inspirational boost, man.
totally cool, man. Well, it has been absolutely inspirational for me. The coolest thing is I feel that with every portfolio that I review, I end up learning something. And the awesome thing about that is like just that hunger, that need to get better. You know, when I review people's portfolio, when I talk to people, that stuff is the circle of life. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just like I really love getting close to that fire of the young student, you know, and it keeps that fire, that hunger going in me as well. So when I have these talks, when I'm talking with David, when we're hanging out, you know, sort of kind of getting deep into the shop talk, this stuff is incredibly inspirational. I'm going to have to do some pages or a painting today just to get this out of me now. So I really appreciate everyone kind of joining in
but
and
first
hanging
you gotta
out.
eat. But first you gotta eat.
Yes. First I have to eat.
And then get paint whatever you want because I know you. You will be like, I need it. I need it.
Yes.
Okay, please don't cut because I want to say proper goodbye to you after we are offline, of the live stream. But to all of you, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your amazing comments and questions, and for bringing the love to thank you for bringing the love to Brian because he deserves the love. Thank you for the pros joining us for the same thing. You're amazing. And see you all next week. On Monday, we are going to have a chat about color with three amazing female colorists Trish Mulvihill, Tree Farrell, and Erin Angiolini. Three, American, Irish, Italian, different kinds, different. I want to talk about color art and and also about
Trish is
female.
a monster. She is
What?
so good. Trish, she's a monster. She
Oh,
is
she
so
is.
good. Mhm.
She's so. Let's say it. She's so fucking amazing.
Yes.
She's an amazing human being and an amazing colorist and all of it. And as I said, really important. I want to see you guys to talk about color art, about everything we can imagine about color art with female colorists. Also, that part of the industry that we don't touch that often. So, see you all on Monday at the same time. Have a great weekend. Wear your fucking mask. Don't be assholes. So, bye.
Yes.